That's right, you've seen the thumbnail and title. We're talking about simulation theory, the theory that says that we're potentially just a brain in a jar in some secret lab hooked up to a computer or the equivalent of in some world that we know nothing about. Our parents, our siblings, our friends, our family, every thought we've had, every experience, everything we've ever made or done is nothing but a bunch of ones and zeros or the equivalent of code in this crazy place that we call our universe. Perhaps we aren't even real and we're all just part of the same brain or CPU or a combination of the two or something else that's unfathomable to our ones and zeros or equivalent of brains that's floating around in this weird simulation that we call reality in an unfathomable universe we will never know nothing about. And we would be very lucky if we are even that brain, because chances are we are known as a non-player character, an NPC. We are just a figment of the reality of which there is the simulation. We, of course, are just mere mortals playing with concepts that are near, if not impossible to prove one way or another. Although most of us could be considered guests at the table when compared to the great minds that pioneered this theory and the theories that led to it. Them and every other scientist, scholar, religious figure, or anybody that lives the way we do in this reality is like an ant trying to figure out quantum computing, or perhaps better yet, like Mario trying to figure out what an SNES is. Remember to think for yourself, take everything, including this video and every other video, book, or anything that came out of any human's mouth ever with a grain of salt, and let's play with some ideas then. Now, because you never know who's watching the video, what is the Matrix? What is real? What is simulation theory? Well, simulation theory is the theory that we are basically living in a computer game like The Sims or GTA.
Is it really so hard to believe?
Maybe some of us are player characters and some of us are non-player characters or NPCs.
Yeah. Or maybe the puzzle is just to just break out of the system and just stick it to the creator in some way. Basically, like if you're.
And there are tremendously brilliant people that truly believe or at least hypothesize in this theory. The simulation theory suggests that everything that we do, see, and everything we've ever done in our entire lives is actually part of some extreme advanced computer program simulation or even a video game. And just like the characters in that video game, we wouldn't realize it. We live our entire lives never knowing the better. We could search the entire world from point A all the way back to point A. That's right, the world's circle. And you wouldn't find any proof of this matter.
I want you to think about the computer that's running Skyrim. The computer running Skyrim is not in the Skyrim world. Alfred Stormcloak could walk from the Dragon Mountains all the way down, and you wouldn't find any evidence of the computer. So you're not going to find any evidence of the data center looking around here.
Imagine that you're playing a video game like GTA or The Sims. In these games, you create entire worlds, and these worlds are full of characters who are born, grow up, who work, play, love, have jobs, have families, live their lives, and interact with each other. Now think about what would happen if the game became so advanced that the characters basically became sentient, started thinking and acting just as complex as we do. And when you were plugged into this game, it would be hard to tell the difference between reality and this fictional world. At what point would these creatures be so complex and sentient that doing anything bad to them would be just as bad as doing to somebody real? As if they have the capability to feel feelings, emotions, and even pain, at some point, these characters would just be people. And they would believe that they were living in the real world. I guess at least most of them. So basically, we're just like this fine lady. At what point do you consider something sentient? What is real? Think of a box, and in this box you know that there is either a computer or a person, and it can talk. You can have a conversation, and there's no way that you can tell the difference. Would it matter if it was a human? Would it matter if it was thinking for itself, or would it be just tricking you? Or if you found out that it was a computer, you would think that it was tricking you. However, there's a case to be made that it's not. I do believe there's something different between tricking somebody that something is sentient versus it actually being sentient. But the lines do get blurry, and there are different types of intelligence. Many computers today, although definitely not sentient, can be considered much more intelligent than a human being, but that has no emotional intelligence. At what point would you consider a computer to have a soul? Would there be any way to prove that we're not part of a machine? Imagine within the simulated world that the technology got so good that these simulated creatures started creating simulated worlds as well. And the world above us, if they made us, if it's there, then they would have also made many simulations. Perhaps all slightly different, for all slightly different reasons, or to see different aspects of whatever world they come from. Worlds within worlds within worlds. The way that we would figure this out is that we would get technology good enough that we could make simulations or video games that were indistinguishable from real life. And just like an NPC in GTA or any other video games, there would be no way to actually know for sure, and really the only way to know for sure is if our technology got good enough to make a simulation that was indistinguishable to reality to us. And if that's the case, then there's like a 99% chance that we are also living in a simulation. It's to the point where it's like, what is real? If you can't tell the difference, you can't tell the difference. Therefore, it is at least real to you, especially if you are an NPC.
It did not take me long to open the question as to whether it might not be more than that in fact plural realities did exist superimposed onto one another like so many film transparencies. What I still do not grasp, however, is how one reality out of the many becomes actualized in contradistinction to the others. Perhaps none does. Perhaps, again, it hangs on an agreement in viewpoint by a sufficiency of people. More likely, the matrix world, the one with the true core of being, is determined by the programmer. He or it articulates, prints out, so to speak, the matrix choice and fuses it with actual substance. The core or essence of reality, that which receives or attains it, and to what degree, that is within the purview of the programmer. This selection and reselection is part of general creativity, of world building.
When I start to feel like things like this could be true, it's hard not to feel like everything's a bit pointless. I mean, our entire existence perhaps running in some dude's grandma's basement on a janky pre-built. I mean, it's like, at least learn how to build. Bigger bang for your buck, you know what I'm saying? But then I think, if it is a game, if it is a simulation, one, there's probably bugs to be exploited, and two, there could just be straight up cheat codes. If you're like super accomplished in one way, it's like, okay, you worked really hard for it. But there are people in this world that have won Grammys and Oscars. And look at Eminem in the music business. And did you know Shaun White can BMX too? It's like, not only is he a professional snowboarder, a professional skateboarder, and by professional I mean one of the best who ever lived, especially in the snowboarding department, but the dude can actually BMX. And I'm pretty sure I've seen him like on other things too, but don't quote me on that.
$20, dropping them on the sidewalk. Happens because the laws of nature allow these things. If we could hack into the computer running nature, we could change the rules.
Now, simulation theory itself is a somewhat new theory, as you need computers and simulations to then theorize that we're living in one. However, many philosophers, writers, scientists, and just people in general have played with many similar ideas throughout history. The philosopher Plato played with the idea of the ultimate reality, a reality beyond ours, one that was above it and more advanced than ours, kind of looking inward. Another philosopher, René Descartes, speculated that there is no way to tell if we are living in a dream or if this is actually reality, and there would be no way to really tell the difference, and also that it kind of wouldn't matter. Spitting out the well-known phrase, "I think, therefore I am." No matter if we live in a dream, a simulation, or someone else's dream, the fact that I know that I'm having the thoughts that I'm having is enough to realize that I am real, at least in some sets of the understanding. There are many aspects about simulation theory, and again, I could just go on to wild tangents, and maybe I will for a second here. One thing about simulation theory is it makes me feel like it's probably more likely that there is life after our death, if you will. Because when I think about if I were to create a simulation, if I had unlimited computing power and I could make the ultimate game of The Sims, would I give them a heaven, a hell, whatever? I think it more likely that there actually is life after death. That if this was real reality, that when you die, if science is right, then you'd probably be gone. But if it's a simulation, if I think about if I was a programmer or if I had if I was the game player and I could make any sort of Sims world that I wanted, would I give those little people a little heaven or hell? And the answer is yes, just for the fun of it, and especially if I liked the character. So maybe some of us are favorites, I don't know. And then there's just the way a computer works. Like, it's the old question, does a tree make a noise when it falls in the forest if no one is there to hear it? And the answer can differ depending on what line of thought that you have about it. In traditional science, it says of course, and there's an argument to be had. There is always something or somebody to hear it if you include squirrels and bears and bugs and microscopic insects on that tree. But quantum physics have made more than just a 0 and a 1 state. It could be both have made a noise and not made a noise. And the way a computer renders is like when you're playing GTA or whatever video game that you're playing, it's only rendering what you're looking at. Everything behind you is saving space and going into the abyss of where you cannot see. Now, I'm not going to pretend to be a computer scientist or programmer, but I know a little bit about building computers and a little bit about the way they work. And the thing is if we're in a simulation, then the place that we would be playing, wherever you are, wherever you're looking, the room that you're in, would be rendered, right? So you can look around and manipulate your surroundings. And that would be in fast access memory, which would be the RAM, the high-speed memory. But when you left the room or when you are deceased, that RAM would be transferred into the SSD or hard drive for long-term storage to then be picked up again and moved back into quick access the next time the player character or whatever's controlling wants to access it. Now, it may never be accessed. Maybe he's sick of the simulation or the game, the player character is or whatever, but still it would be there and it'd be unlikely that it would go away unless it got corrupted somehow. But yeah. And then I think about like, all these ETs running around now. That could just be another part of the simulation. That could be from another world. Lots of video games have different worlds. Maybe we're at the point of the game where it starts going like there's some sort of storyline, and back in the day there was these aliens or gods or whatever that helped us function here on the world, and then they disappeared, or maybe they've always been here in the background is more what I believe. And I don't necessarily believe in simulation theory, mind you, but maybe they come back now because it's like part of the arcing story. Or maybe they're the player character and they are the scientists running some sort of experiment, either simulation or otherwise. And they come down here and check on their little creations, digital or not. So to start to wrap up this crazy video, I've been thinking about this subject a lot in the last week or whatever it's been since I started it. I've thought about it throughout my life off and on as people do and think about weird things or whatever. When I first started to think about it, I thought it was really cool. I was seeking out all the different scientists that think that it's real and diving in deep and the Mandela effect mixing in with it and all of this. The way I think about the world and simulation theory and just all these crazy ideas is if you compare an ant to us and then us to the world or the universe, it's like there's no way an ant can understand us in fully. Like they might be able to understand they can bite us, or maybe even like as a colony, they understand that if they go to a human house, they are probably going to find crumbs, which is like giant pieces of food for them and their queen. But they're never going to understand what I am, the way that we, as much as we try, and it's incredible that we can, like, imagine simulation theory is real, and we came to the theory that there's a simulation. That's amazing. That doesn't seem, and that honestly makes me think that we're not a simulation. How would you write a simulation, or no matter what kind of AI, and you're going to allow that simulation to become self-aware that it's a simulation, but maybe that's the whole test, is us becoming aware. I'll tell you one thing, there's no way to escape the simulation unless we're on another layer. Scientists are always like, how are we going to escape the simulation? If we are just the first level of the simulation, there is nothing to upload to. Maybe we could like upload to a robot, assuming that whatever is outside of this simulation is remotely anything that is even fathomable to our little AI brains. But most likely it's so different, and they've taken so many shortcuts that even our own consciousness is like half of like whatever real consciousness is. But if we're on like the third layer of the simulation, if we're a simulation within a simulation within a simulation, then we could maybe like get smart enough or hoard enough resources, like some sort of computer virus, to then like escape the virtual box that is our simulation into the bigger simulation or the OS or whatever is bigger with more control. I mean, what would like actually reality hacking look like? Is that, maybe like a black hole? Maybe a black hole is a virus. I don't know. I'm just on a crazy rant at this point. Regardless, what do you think about simulation theory? Is this whole thing crazy? I think it's a great mind experiment, if nothing else. I don't necessarily believe in it. I don't necessarily believe in anything, like I said before. Remember to like. It truly helps a small channel. I'm trying to grow this thing. I do have another channel that's all over the place, and I don't know if I'm going to be posting there very much, but maybe some live streams or something. I don't know what I'm doing with that other channel, but please do like the video if you don't subscribe also. And as I used to say, I'll either see you in the next video or I'll see you in the next live, but hopefully in the next video.